but so real. Yeah, give me change that you can feel. Yeah, a dream we can't believe. Yeah, welcome to Knowville. Yeah.
And I welcome you guys back, my fellow Novillians. Today I'm speaking to someone who has a pretty interesting story as far as his COVID journey and his occupation and what that entails. And sir, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please. Speaking with Mr. Rallee Balaktas.
Good morning. Rally here, and we've been good friends for a minute. Always close,
Long
but we
minute.
live far away, right? So I'm in Charleston as an administrator of a residential care facility that my family owns. Basically, what that means is we take care of people that are psychiatrically disabled to the point where they can't really take care of themselves. Now, you can imagine the demand for that to be sky high right now, with the mental illness being such a focal point in everybody's conversations.
And what is something that people probably don't realize as far as in the COVID realm or era that we're currently in, that they might just take for granted that something that is a issue you might have to deal with in your particular realm and occupation.
Well, for one thing, since COVID, people have been kind of focused on their mental health, being stuck inside their house all day. Um, however the conversation that people have happen, it it quickly becomes where mental health, you're going crazy, or the cases of child abuse is up, or the grades of the kids are down, or they're kind of depressed because they can't see their friends. So kind of like a butterfly effect. What happens now is supposed to have some kind of effect on future years, even of how people and kids, the kids now grow up, and having experience being kind of like trapped inside their house is going to change how society is, I think. And a lot of people don't really think, they only think what's happening to them, and what is basically what's happening to everybody else. But there's going to be a lot that we have to deal with, I think, that we're not prepared for. Maybe some things that we haven't even come up with that will become like a real big problem is brewing now.
Interesting. And is this something that you've always been involved in as far as like healthcare, or as far as specialized healthcare dealing with people with issues with mental acuity? Is that always something you've been involved in?
Well, no, I kind of landed this job about 5 years ago. It's a family owned business where the owners, my family, is getting set to retire, and the demand for this kind of thing is basically at an all-time high. Everybody, like the regulatory bodies, are always trying to get us to like accept more residents, and they're real leaning on us on some of their regulations just so we could stay afloat. There's a lot of programs that help us out, but um, as far as my involvement, I am actually a chef. So my talent is in the kitchen, which we feed those people, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks every day. Holidays, we throw parties for them. So they 4th of July, Christmas party, COVID's affected all that. But my chef training, and I've owned restaurants before. Um, and before that, I was actually an engineer, and that's where I met you. When I was in college as a nuclear engineer. So I was an engineer for a little bit. Then decided that wasn't the thing for me, became a chef. And then since I'm in the same town as this business, and my mom kind of wooed me into working it and trying to save this kind of sustainable business with high demand. That's where I landed. And taking care of people, serving them, that's kind of my thing. So
Well,
I'm just doing
I
the
was
same
just, oh,
way.
excuse me. I was just gonna ask, like, has there been a commonality between all three of those things that you see that transfers over, or was there anything from two of the former things that you think have impacted what you're doing now, as far as like lessons learned, excuse me, or anything of that nature?
Well, I think that there's not. I wouldn't say commonality. Yeah, yeah. I would think that it's more of um steps, like tools that I have. Even though I thought that maybe I was going to be an engineer for the rest of my life, what I learned and how I did my job directly translated to skills that were very relevant to being a chef. Oddly enough, all the details that you have to look at, and how you have to be regimented and really be close to your budget to be successful. um and then the things that I learned as far as being a chef became steps to the administrative work that I do now at Midland Park. um we take it as an art, we take it as a service, and then evolve and take that as a step to using it as part of my job now. So not really commonality, more like tools that I put under my belt to be able to be the most efficient at my job now, which I'm still learning, and maybe this will be like another step to the next thing that we do. But what we're doing here is I think pretty good for the most part. I don't really see me doing something else right now.
Do you feel like, as far as all the different excuse me, paths that you've taken, do you feel like this is more soul enriching, dealing with people, or do you feel like they all had their own special thing that they sort of enriched you with?
Oh man, if I'm gonna be 100% candid and honest with you, man, it's more of a gray area, okay? Because you know, on one hand, yes, we are taking care of people, we are serving them when they can't help themselves, right? But on the other hand, uh, I like to think that I'm like one of those people that like organic food and sustainable living, and a big middle finger to big pharma, you know. But at the same time, I'm like part of that system too. We're drugging people basically, as far as doctor's orders, but it's part of the system. It's better that they're at our facility than out in the streets, homeless and committing crimes, being drug addicts. But, I truly believe that there's a better way to deal with mental illness. I think we're still evolving the whole entire system, the whole entire way that we treat mental illness. So, I mean, we're just a part of that growing pains. And so, yeah, it's soul enriching because we're helping people, but at the same time, I think there's so much more we can do.
So when you say that, are you saying like a more like holistic approach, or what are
Hell
you?
yeah, man. Yes, absolutely. Like, um, yeah, we do. We try to get them to do a little bit of gardening work, a little bit of like your own personal hygiene, like cleaning up your own area. Like, we do yoga. So, there's yeah, we do a lot of the crafts and everything that you could do, but I feel like in some ways the things that we the as a society would deem normal, and we have to bring those people that are outside of that like boundary into our normal, it kind of dulls something that may have been really, really special in a positive way for a lot of these people. And so there is another state, another like way of looking that maybe, because we tried all the, you know, the chemical way and all the current sciences, a combination of a scientific approach and a holistic approach, I think is you know, the way of the future.
I mean, are you aware of any places that would have what you would deem to be the ideal holistic approach? Or are you basically saying, like, with what's allowed as of now, you guys are pretty much doing everything as holistically as possible, as far as like what you can do and still be, you know, considered in regulation?
It's hard because, like I said, we are part of the system. So when the state kind of pays you, you don't have much wiggle room into the kind of services that you provide, or how you approach what is healthy and what is right. You know, I mean, it's a pretty good process in that they have mental health doctors that make these prescriptions. But you know, a mental health doctor from, say, here Charleston Mental Health, they're never gonna officially, and how could they prescribe, you know, eating an all organic vegan diet for someone? You know, they won't do that. They'll just give you like gabapentin.
Which,
it,
for those unfamiliar, like what would that be?
it
Like, what
well
would that treat the symptoms of? Or
it treats several things. It can calm you down. It can be a pain relief or headache medicine. It can help you sleep, uh, mood regulation. But it's not a controlled substance, which means like you have to like record it and you have to answer the DEA if any pills are missing. But if you start taking gabapentin, you're gonna have to take it for the rest of your life. You know, it's not a medicine. It's just like a covering up something, other imbalance that in other ways could create further imbalance in another way. You know, it can make you hooked on it, or it can make you need a different medication to, you know, counter some side effects. So a doctor's not gonna prescribe that. And if the state's paying for you to go see this department, this doctor, there's really no chance. And the business as it stands now, you know,
yeah,
a
it
lot of
is.
a lot of the clients that we have, they have no money. They're almost, you know, one step away, two steps away from being homeless. So they don't have the resources that the state would, you know, add on to, or match to make it good like that, to make it the way it could be or it should be.
Yeah, it is a crazy thing, and I'm probably not old enough. You're probably not old enough to be cognizant of when medicine, quote unquote, like take your medicine, just became like a pill. You know, there used to be other things that would be prescribed for certain afflictions, or, you know, certain remedies to try to get over certain issues. But now, yeah, it really does seem like there's just like, all right, take this pill, and that's what
Mhm.
you're gonna, that's your medicine, that's your
You
whole
know what I
thing.
wish, you know what I wish, because right now the state and the programs that we have cover things like physical therapy. Now I agree with physical therapy, like you get your body moving and stretched out by a professional. They really help you start to stay limber. But I wish that there was a professional like that, in the sense that could be a part of a more robust program, like how they do the physical therapy with us in the diet, in the diet area, where they can come in and really kind of guide what the best nutrition for a particular person would be, and like help the facility like create a situation where like we're giving them the proper nutrients, you know, as part of their medicine.
Right.
So that would be awesome, because right now there isn't one like that. It's just the medical part, and then there's the psychiatric part, and then there's the physical therapy part.
And I know it'll probably make me sound like a some sort of far left wing radical, but I mean, if you make medicine or health all about a profit motive, you know, it's going to be really hard for us to ever get to the point where the health of the person is more important than the profit of the medicine, in my opinion.
Yeah, the way that it stands now, yeah, because medicine is just ultimate profit, because there's insurance that backs it up, and even the government backs it up. So
Right.
like that's hard to beat with, you got to put some seeds on the ground and start growing your own food locally, and that you can't beat that right now. It's unfortunate, but it is the system that we kind of live in.
Yes, 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 yes. So I guess at this point we've sort of talked about what you do and where you've been previously. I guess what I would ask for the most part is, with the current situation that we have going on and dealing with the people that you're dealing with their different impairments and whatnot, like, is it so if someone's, for instance, you have to do the social distancing or wearing the mask, like how difficult are measures like that to enforce in a situation that you find yourself in at your company?
I'm just like a lot of people. I've never seen anything like COVID. We've had some positive cases, and some positive cases with symptoms, but it's just so crazy because we've never dealt with a sickness in this way. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay. Hold on a sec, Ron.
No, you're fine.
Okay. All right, sorry, bud.
Not a problem. Fatherhood is 24/7.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Let's get back to the question you were asking. What were we talking about again? Sorry, I got distracted.
No problem. I was just saying, like, I know there's certain things that are supposed to be done, sort of like social distancing and wearing the mask and things of that
Yeah.
nature. How difficult is that to sort of enforce in the position that you're in with your like at your job, dealing with who you're having to deal with? How difficult is it to enforce things of that nature?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. For one, the rules are changing all the time. We get direct guidance from our health department, DHEC. 1 week we have to report the number of visitors that we have, and then that goes on for a couple of months, and then a new guidance would say that, all right, you don't have to do that anymore, but you have to temp check all the visitors and they can only be outside. And then like the next week it'll be different from that. On top of that, some of the new rules try to make it easier, but at the same time they're asking a little much from, like, there some of them will ask all of the details of someone, like where they were born, their whole bio, if they tested positive. I do find that a little bit like, why do you need to know where someone was born?
Yeah, I mean, do they ever
You know what I mean?
like, do they articulate why they need to know that, or?
No, it's the health department. So they come down and they say, hey, we need you to fill this up. And it's like, it abounds. There's so much of that you have to do that, like you try to get all of it done. And you got to wonder how many of these facilities have someone like me to answer all these like kind of bureaucratic red tape for something like, you know, like COVID is an illness, but nobody's ever looked at an illness this way, you know, where it was like just traced down to the nitty-gritty details of a person, you know, where they been, what they ate, like what
Yeah.
nonsense. It's a little much, and it becomes difficult with that. And then the fear, you have to deal with the fear of people, because, you know, in a place like ours, you get like varying degrees and varying types of mental illness, and when you mix it up, it makes it difficult, and you have to really kind of make people feel safe even if they're not, you know. So it's a great big balancing act, and it's really hard. My job, I'd say, would be about twice or three times harder than before COVID, for sure. Paperwork alone.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Um, was there, or is there rather, I guess, something that you feel like you've picked up from doing this job specifically? Has it taught you anything? Like, what has been the thing about this job that you feel like has allowed you, or maybe even forced you to grow the most?
That the world's changed. I think the world embrace it was like a great big virtual revolution. Specifically in this job, all of the doctor's appointments, if they didn't have to be there live, if they could get it done virtually, they would, every opportunity. And then when it started looking like it was winding down, the doctor said, hey, this is a really efficient way of doing things, we're going to just keep on doing it this way for now. And then they worked it out with the insurance companies, and now it counts as a doctor's visit if they just call you on the phone call, and, you know, they get paid a lot of money for that. So the virtual revolution has happened, you know. Me and you, we're having a conversation right now, it's virtual.
This is true.
Mm-hmm. And so all these holidays and families having their, it's all virtual. So more, actually, for me, honestly, more than the actual disease of, you know, and it's horrible that it's a, you know, what it's done, but more than that, the bigger thing, there's a few bigger things that happen. Yeah, schoolwork's been virtualized, but I think the biggest thing is that everything became virtual, and and that's that's what I take. That's what I see now. That's the different perspective, the added dimension that we also exist virtually amongst each other.
Can I say that one of the things that struck me, and this is probably because I pay attention to things such as this, having children that are school aged, is it seems like a whole lot less mass shootings, quote unquote, and school shootings. Like 2020 might be the lowest year ever for that. And I'm just like, okay, the school shootings, you can understand that. You have various places where everyone was going to school virtually, but the mass shootings, that's the thing that I think is the biggest takeaway for me. Because I don't know if you recall, but it seeming like having a mass shooting at least every week. It seemed like for a while there.
Yeah, right. But like there, it's all like, um if it's not gonna bleed out in that arena, it's gonna bleed out in another arena. And now you're looking at these reports of child abuse and suicide happening, you know, because of this whole isolation that these children are having. And you got to look at like, well, what are we trying to force feed into these kids that's making them either want to mass shoot or kill themselves? And it's just like, what the heck is going on here? what are we feeding them that's making them, turn to these ideas? It's
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know a lot of people would probably make the argument that, social media probably plays a role in both. Now, obviously, me and you go far enough back where it was like what, Columbine, which there was no social media then. So,
yeah.
but at the same time, it does seem like when social media became more prevalent in our lives, the frequency in which the same would happen seemed to become more prevalent as well.
Yeah, it was sensationalized, and along with the kind of celebrity status that you get as one of those kinds of people, unfortunate as it is, it happens. The caricature of society also like got more into plain view, like the popular kids are more popular, and that is like reflected and exaggerated in social media, and it makes those feelings, so it's like a snowball effect or a butterfly effect when more of this stuff happens and is put into people's face like 24/7. It's gonna come crashing down, or people are gonna realize that you've got to like unplug, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what, too? Like it's a direct thing, because those kids, if they make it out, end up becoming the very adults that we take care of at my facility, where they end up having severe mental illness when they turn to drugs from the trauma or whatever they experienced, growing up. It's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely. And you got to think, a lot of these people, if they're our age or older, there's a lot of things now as a kid growing up that you could probably not necessarily have to endure what you would have had to endure growing up in an earlier time. Like if you come out now as a kid, let me say society is going to be a lot more gentle for the most part if you come out as a kid now than like at any other time in my lifetime. So like hopefully being more open and more um empathetic and willing to accept, differences will make it where a lot of the things that people find that makes them turn to drug abuse or alcohol abuse, like maybe some of those conditions might be lessened because we are more accepting than we have been in the past.
I don't know a lot about like, that kind of research about how it was or how it, but I do have a feeling that there is a kind of cycle, maybe like an age of enlightenment that we might be entering, and maybe have been entering slowly as a culture over this time. Just me and you having this conversation about this topic at this time now, analyzing how society is reacting to like a new like massive event. So it's very, very interesting times we live in. In a lot of ways you can say it's never been better.
And then in a lot
But
of ways you could probably say it's never been worse.
right.
The best of times, it was the worst of times, man. I guess what that was written in the 1800s, early 1800s or whatnot. So I guess this has been a situation that has been reoccurring throughout because they were saying it back then.
Maybe it's like a basic human truth, like when you said, like, when you asked me the question earlier, does this type of work fulfill my soul, and I immediately went, well, there's some darkness to it too, so it kind of you kind of have to battle with that, I guess, individually and societally.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Well, I guess now we would view it in terms of, anything that is financially viable is never going to be able to be um completely about the art of it or the joy of it or the purpose of it, because it has that financial component. Now, if we evolve past past the, I don't want to say capitalistic, but I guess that's what I have to say, society, which I'm not necessarily saying communism, because those are economic theories, and I'm sure there's more that
Yeah,
we
I think we talked about before, like the Jacques Fresco or the resource based economy. There's a lot of that kind of idea. I mean, there's definitely ways, and now kind of you can see some light. Some things are happening where like you don't really need like the labor of it.
right. Well, it's just
Yeah,
like it's like, and I've always been a huge Star Trek fan, and it's just like I just keep coming back to the idea that, and from my understanding, something akin to this technology is not unfeasible. But like, so when you start replicating the matter, then at that point, like, you can feed everyone, which I guess you can make the argument we could feed the whole planet now if money wasn't the issue, if no one cared about being paid. But
right.
like, once you get to the point where it's like, okay, anything that you can try to attach value to is valueless because anyone can just make it, like, maybe then we no longer have greed. I don't know how else you get rid of greed. And if greed's always there, everything's always gonna at some point have the bad part of it.
That
If people are doing what they want.
I think that we would not be the species that we are now.
Without greed,
Like we would be a different. Yeah, because there would be too much that would be different. That we wouldn't exist this way in many ways if if greed wasn't built into the system, into the brain. I, I,
so
I think that a lot would have to change for
so
so
maybe
a lot
like
of time.
the Neanderthals win if, like, humans don't have greed. That's why we beat the Neanderthals, because we were able to, like, monopolize the food's resource for us and not let them eat, and they died off or something.
Perhaps it was a necessary adjustment of the species for better survival. And now that technology is here and here to stay, the connectivity of being virtual is here and here to stay. I think the species is ready to move on past Homo sapien to like Homo superior, or like some other term where it's different. But that would in order for greed to be totally out of the system, you'd have to be completely devoid of any kind of poverty. And I think that's possible to happen, like right now as it stands. We'd have to change a lot